Hi, you guys. Really sorry to be late. That doesn't usually happen to us. And this is Lost Arts Radio Live. It's really live. If it were recorded, we would have been on time, but we had to get things straightened out. And Skype was working against us today. So we finally prevailed against that. So thanks for being patient. I appreciate it. Maybe hearing this on an archive. If not, if you're live with us, I hope you're having a good weekend. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And most of the population, I talk to a lot of people all week and seem to be oblivious to what's actually transpiring in the world on a big scale. And humanity is under, the way I see it, the biggest coordinated attack in world history on behalf of the global rulers that most people don't even know exist. They think the top level rulers are the presidents and the prime ministers and things like that. And that's not true. There are levels way above that. Some detail of that has come out with people like Dr. Stephen Greer and others, but it definitely goes way higher. And most of the real top level rulers of the world don't use their names in public. So they're not ones that we could have, refer to like bankers and other like that. Those are part of the power structure. But at the top, this is coming down from other levels, you might say. So looking at what's going on right now, there's a big focus on the election in the U.S., where I happen to be sitting right now. And that's really not understood too much what's going on with that. But one thing is clear is there's huge, unprecedented, massive fraud on the part of the system to try to elect Joe Biden, who is in partnership with the media, the corporate media that is completely criminal in our country and most of the so-called free world. They absolutely are determined to have him president, and it's not decided yet because there's massive vote fraud that's unquestionable. And the media is all saying there's no such thing, it's not happening. And so they've got Joe Biden to declare himself president-elect. This matters for a lot of reasons. He's promised to do some amazing things for us, like institute immediate nationwide mask mandates and withhold, one of his advisors is saying to withhold food stamps from people that won't get the vaccination, and a lot of really cutting edge advanced programs like that. Not to say Trump is perfect at all, but fortunately, the election at least needs to be exposed as transparent and real if we can still manage to do that. And there are legal processes in motion to do it now. What I thought I would like to have somebody join me today, a great guest of, unusual consciousness to really look at some of these issues from a different level. And we're fortunate to have the creator of UI Media Network with us, Tim Ray. I'm going to have him talk a little bit about his radio shows and other things that he's doing, and a great presentation he just made at Red Pill Expo. Way more than we really have time for in this short program, but we'll do the best we can. But as far as looking at the U.S. election, which is one of the things I wanted to do, I'm proposing that we give a small example, and it'll have to be small because we don't have much time, of a new level of debate. And most debates that we're used to are antagonistic, and you have each side trying to prove the other side is a total idiot and evil if possible, and that they are just brilliant and know everything, that that everybody should listen to them. It's usually a complete waste of time, and it can be done when one side is really trying to push through evil things. It can be exposed in that kind of debate. But where you have people who are not trying to be evil and who are just interested in what's going on and what are the best solutions for humanity, the debate I want to propose is that most people are on the same side, and they're actually looking at all positions with the attitude, look, I don't care if I'm proven wrong, great. If you can show me something that's more true, that's what we're trying to get a hold of so we can use it. And sorry for the long prologue there, Tim, but welcome, and thanks for being patient through all the Skype battles and being able to be with us. Nice to see you.
Same here, Richard. Thank you. And I have to say, I've been on many interviews, and this is one of my favorite programs because how your mind works. It's just so well balanced, brilliant. You look at you have no limits to where your mind and open-mindedness will be. And to me, it's just so stimulating. I wish this was considered as formal as the mainstream media as it needs to be really in the future, if not there, because this is what all your listeners and viewers should be getting on Fox News, on CNN. They should be getting this type of information. We'd have such a different world if we were
Yeah.
not just dumbing
You,
everybody down.
you
But
know,
let me
unfortunately, one of the things I'm not great at is how to get more exposure in, which is probably why we're still on the air anyway, because they don't consider us a threat because nobody knows about us. But
well, absolutely, and it's not coincidence that people such as yourself or myself and my media network that we're not around the world. We're around the world, but not around the world on the level of AP or Reuters, is because we would be a threat to this agenda. And there is an agenda. There's a reason why that you're not allowed to grow to that extent, or myself and others, because they have to keep people in the dark. And I was just going to say something earlier when you were mentioning this. It's time. This is for real now, where we are and as a collective in this three-dimensional world that we call Earth, right? Is that
right.
Ignorance used to be bliss. And you could even go to the Matrix movie where when he's eating that steak, and I forgot his name, not Morpheus, but the other guy, and he's like, man, this steak is just, I know it's not real, but I'm just I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
And ignorance is bliss, but ignorance is not bliss anymore. Ignorance is actually life and death. Ignorance is very dangerous. We're in such a time that when people who are not looking at deeper meanings of what's going on, or looking at understanding what potentially could be a scenario that may not be what's given to us on just a superficial level of, say, mainstream media, it could be life and death. And that's coming up now. I mean, I've been interviewing people who are sharing about the vaccines, or sharing what's going on with the chemtrails. I mean, we are literally in a depopulation program coming here, and have been experiencing it, but could teeter-totter on something that could be a death grid, as we move forward. And so people are going to have to wake up. There will be serious consequences of staying in the dark.
Yeah. And, I think that's completely true. And then the next step, if you accept that as potentially a good thing to do, this little detail of defining what waking up is, I think that's pretty important, because
it's in levels, isn't it, Richard? I mean,
there are levels
to a certain degree, but I'm sure that on some level, you or I, there's so many more other levels that we would wake up to that we don't have access to. We don't know.
Well, right. And that's connected to the attitude that you were talking about that we should demonstrate, is that to access wisdom, you have to be willing to admit you don't know anything.
That's a good word. I don't know.
Right. And then amazing things come through. If we're not here to defend our point of view, then wow, it's amazing what can happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I'm glad this is where we are right now. I don't think I could have done another year with, focus on career, a house and the picket fence and 2.5 kids and playing along with the Matrix. I mean, I've been ready for this for 30 years, and we're in the crisis stage of the process of bringing in this new world order, sustainable development plan, and all the other jazz. So we're in the third and coming soon to the fourth and final stage, which is creating the new normal. And to me, it's not the wearing a mask or social distancing. That's just part of the crisis we're still involved in. New normal is going to be the sort of deep, severe surveillance and oppression on a tyrannical level never seen before, on a worldwide level, as you mentioned earlier. This is a worldwide sting operation, unprecedented. It's being seen and careful. It wasn't happening overnight in the last 8 months. This has been planned for generations.
So I don't think we should, if we can help it, let that new normal happen. We should do a better one. Yeah. And isn't there one of the Chinese characters that it has two meanings, crisis and opportunity, or something close to that? Right. I think it does. And it might be problem and opportunity or something, but they're both, it's really true. Yeah. I mean, this is a terrible catastrophe that we've gotten to this point that you were saying it's time for, but it's also an incredible opportunity and a test. It's really a consciousness test more than anything else, because you can have the best system of fixing things in the world that's, intellectually logical and leads to a good result and everything. But if the people are not capable of grasping the deeper meaning of it, it doesn't do anything.
No. And that's why I think this whole politics avenue, Richard, you brought up earlier, is really a distraction and a waste of, I think, a waste of humanity's time. And I know I'm going to upset a lot of people who are Trump fans or even people who are Biden fans, you know,
Sure.
But all I see is this latest political game that we've been involved in here is just more division. You know, we're just divided once again on extreme levels. And I'm not saying I'm not able to distinguish between a communist agenda, a Joe Biden agenda, and perhaps more of a capitalist agenda, Trump agenda. But I'm just talking about whatever the real and true agenda is. I'm sure we're not aware of it, and it's not being portrayed to us because there's probably a deeper, more sinister agenda beyond.
Well, you can see what the real agenda is if you look without preconception at developments in the world. I mean, some of us are slow. It took me like more than 20 years to put those pieces together. But at this point, what it looks like to me is a ceremonial sacrifice of all life on the planet. I think the others are just details of them.
You know, and people are like, well, what is he talking about? But I know your audience is much more enlightened than perhaps most. But you're right. The Sabbatians have been hard at work for decades and generations, and seeing the results of it. And I tell everybody all the time, Richard, you don't have to be there in the Bilderberg annual meeting and hear what their agenda is. You don't have to have that experience. Just look at their effects, look at the circumstantial evidence, and you could see what's going on. You could see the depopulation and the poisoning of our society and of our children. Now, you know, they just launched a big lawsuit, just one there too in Germany. I don't know if you heard of it yet, but the Deutsche Bahn, which is the train system, just got sued by this, I guess, couple or these people who are on it, and they said they would not wear a mask because they were able to prove in court that mask within 2 hours permanently damages the brain, causes brain damage.
And with the change in oxygen.
Yes, and you take your less oxygen and you're taking in more CO2. So here it is, and of course this hasn't hit America yet, but it's going to have to. But here it is, this multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Now people don't wear masks, and they don't have to wear masks in the train system in Germany because they lost the lawsuit, right?
No, I didn't even know about that.
Yes, I just had Sheila, Dolores Cahill on, who's over in Ireland, who's a immunologist and a molecular biologist on our show, Frequency Wars, just Wednesday, and she shared this incredible experience. I'm like, wow, that gives hope here. Now we just got to incorporate one good lawsuit showing that, and they have evidence how it does cause you lose brain cells. Now you may not end up being mentally, challenged right after 2 hours there, but they can show brain cells are being lost and brain cells you won't get back. So that's all you need to know. Now, imagine that cumulative effect over a period of time.
That means not all the courts are yet corrupted.
Yes, apparently. And I think there's a lot in the United States courts. They're not all corrupted, unless it's a strong Freemason influence in there, which it is.
There's still good ones.
Yeah, there's still good ones, but that's our last backboard, but it's our last fallout that we have as a judicial system at this point, because we lost a legislative, and the executive branch, some may have faith in it. I haven't. I mean, everything that's going on bad this year is in my perspective, has been happening on Trump's watch. So
you're right. I mean, there was a terrible presentation in the Rose Garden a couple days ago, and talking about how great the warp speed program is. And it was like, it was the most disgraceful presidential program I've seen in quite a while. And so I'm not saying that that's going to be the answer. I'm just saying that if one is going to give us more time than the other one, who's just going to come out and is obviously working flat out for evil, then it's better for us to do the real solution if we can do something to buy a little bit of time. Okay, not that we have total control over that.
Okay, but is it us buying time? Or is it more insidious? Like, say, I mean, there are people talking, and we had on Awaken Atlanta, another show on our network, UIMedia Network.org, and we had these Q guys, Shady and Jeffrey, I believe, and they came on. They were at the Red Pill Expo, by the way, Richard.
Oh, okay, good.
And they came on our show, Wake in Atlanta, and they were talking. They have no doubt whatsoever, and I've heard this multiple places, that Trump will end up winning the election because of the level of fraud and everything going on. Now, I'm not saying that's true or not, but nevertheless, even if Trump does come back and win the election or wins the election finally, I say we can't. I think it's just smart, and it's just healthier to have a skeptical perspective that Trump, Biden, all the rest perhaps are under the same influences or could be under the same influences of the New World Order agenda, just for the fact where we are today. Now, I'm not saying he is, and I hope he's not. I really do, because I think having a little more time to be able to put things in place, I think that would be fantastic for humanity if we take advantage of it. But I do believe if Trump does get back in there, and if he doesn't go along with the mandatory vaccines, and it doesn't go along with the Joe Biden agenda, but in a more clever way, then I think a lot of Americans may go back to sleep again. They may think, hey, this is fine.
It's ultimately in our hands which way it goes. I totally agree with that.
So I don't mind a Joe Biden presidency. I really don't, because at least I could see the enemy's eyes, the whites of his eyes, and I can see.
I've heard a lot of people say that, but it makes, my gut reaction to that is it feels a lot more stress, because the things that they're ready to do right away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very nice that you can see it, but if it happens to you, it's not that nice.
No, and either we're going to step up or we're going to be compliant. Now, what does worry about that to me, as you kind of alluded to, is I've never seen because there's been psychological warfare going on here for a while, but I've never seen the effect of it. It's so effective of how this psychological programming with wearing masks and social distancing for something.
It's amazing.
Something that has no evidence that the mask can stop a virus, zero. In fact, evidence it supports that it's actually harmful. And then the social distancing and this lockdown, and everyone to go along with these lockdowns that's happening right now around the world. And America's coming. The lockdown's coming.
They're about to get much more severe.
Yes, but this is all under Trump's watch too. Still, don't forget.
Right, but now Trump. See, I think that, and again, with this attitude, I'm saying I'm totally fallible. All I'm doing is giving the best perception that I've got at the moment. And the difference that I see is that I think Trump's in there to help the country. And this is by looking into him as a person, backed up by some of the things he's done, which have obviously infuriated the power structure. I don't think they're that subtle to give up voluntarily TPP, the Paris Climate Accord, willingness to talk about religious terrorism, the need for the wall on the southern border. They don't want those things promoted. And I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think they're subtle enough to say, oh yeah, let's have him do all this stuff, get people talking about these forbidden subjects, because that's going to fool everybody.
Well, let me tell you the forbidden. I hear you, Richard, but let me tell you the forbidden subjects that no one's talking about, which tells me I believe Trump is part of the deep state, at least part of the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the 13 families. Maybe a different cabal out of the 13 families, but he's definitely, I believe he's part of that. Is for the fact that he's done nothing to stop these chemtrails, these geoengineering, and he doesn't even acknowledge. Why doesn't he acknowledge it on air? He's not acknowledging not only information like that, but he's even moving forward. We saw him for the first 2 months every day talking about we got to lock down, we got to go wear a mask, we got to COVID-19 is here. Every day he was coming on there. No one asked one intelligent question to him, not one intelligent question. And even then he was like, well, Sweden's wrong. They're going to find out they're wrong. And they're not wrong. Sweden's right. We know the evidence is in. They did it right.
On that subject, they are right.
But he's still not admitting that, Richard. He's still not saying we were wrong. He's doubling down now still.
I agree. But I want to respond to that in saying that when you're really conscious of all these things and they're obvious, and you can look at the sky and say, wow, that's not normal. You think that that's obvious to everybody.
Yeah.
But I know that there are lots and lots of super intelligent people that can't see chemtrails. They can't imagine that would be going on. And they're smart, and a lot of them have good motivation. And the other thing is what you mentioned about the lockdown in Sweden and all that. What that shows me, with the feeling I get for his character, is that he believes in the medical system. and the medical authorities. And there's lots of people that do who are not being evil. They've just been trained since birth that if a doctor says something, especially a really famous doctor, you know, especially like the head of what is it, NIAID, NIAID in NIH, especially if they say it. I mean, I'm just a businessman speaking for Trump. How could I know better than a super expert doctor? This sounds stupid, but there really are a lot of super brilliant people who think this.
I'm not disagreeing. In fact, we wouldn't be the mess today if those super brilliant people actually woke up, opened up their eyes, looked at some common sense, and started connecting some dots. Perhaps we would be a little further in avoiding this level of New World Order.
It wouldn't be happening.
So, but this is where I think that you may, Richard, and I love you, you may be giving too much credibility to his personality and all that jazz, because Trump's not been, I mean, you may think he's being naive and being just ignorant of what's going on, but he's been in not only the limelight, but in the business world for decades. I mean,
why is he not smart enough to understand GMOs?
Well, is he not smart enough, or is he not allowed to say it, or does he choose not to say it because he knows how the glyphosate in the food is actually?
I'll tell you, he eats them every day.
Okay.
And feeds them to his family. So I don't think that's a fake. I think he's really. I know this is almost impossible to imagine, but it's not just Trump. It's a lot of smart people all over the country.
I'm not disagreeing on that, but you think he would have access to more information to what's going on, other than
he has access to all of it. He has access to all of it, but so does everybody, because right now on the internet, you can look up Jeffrey Smith's work in about 2 seconds and find out all about GMOs, and you can look up the history of vaccines back to 1796. Yes. Anybody can learn all that. It's not a secret.
Well, not only that, but he has to know about Dr. Thompson and Senator Posey trying to get Thompson to go public in the representatives in the House. That's all congressional record. He should know how the CDC burned all the records on the MMR vaccination, and how the CEO, the CEO of CDC got a job at Merck and now is working for Merck, who creates the MMR vaccination. I mean, right. He has to have intel feeding him this information. He has to understand the level of
that's if he has people that want him to have it.
I
have talked to a lot of people within higher business levels and things, and they think vaccines are great and they have access to all that.
Okay, but you know this Q movement, and I believe the Q movement is a psyop as well. I don't think it's I think it's part of a psyop.
What is a psyop? Sorry.
The QAnon Q movement.
I think it's a total psyop.
Okay, I do too.
And people. Sorry, but I'll shut up in a second. It's just that there's groups of people that either think Trump's the devil, or that think that he knows everything, and is playing 85-dimension chess.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, if he's smart enough to play even 2-dimension chess, how come he can't understand GMOs? And he also can't understand 5G or wireless technology.
Or our Constitution and the Second Amendment. He just passed the red flag.
No, most people have never read it. They just think they understand it.
Well, he's not a constitutionalist. I don't think he ever claimed to be. He seems to be more of an opportunist. I think, where he used to be Democrat, now he's not. I mean, you think he just flows with where he goes. But my point is this: whether he is insincere or he's just ignorant of what's going on, it's not good for America.
The damage is still there.
Yes, at this point, you have a Joe Biden who's, I believe, completely handled, and this communistic New World Order agenda. You may have Trump part of that. You may not be part of that at this point. But his level of ignorance and going along with these unconstitutional acts of what's occurring right now, and if on his watch, if he locks us down in the next couple months, if he doesn't win the election and he still locks us down, then you know what? Then I say stop giving this guy a pass. Stop thinking that.
Well, he just made a speech in which he said specifically twice, I am not going to do the lockdown, even though these other countries are. He said that. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean he'll do it, but he said it. But what he doesn't seem to address is, he said medical things will not be mandatory. But he didn't address the main point, which is that those are enforced state by state by the criminal health agencies and by the governors and the mayors.
Yeah.
And if the president doesn't make things mandatory, they still can. That
Yeah.
and he
Well,
hasn't
let me
addressed that at
ask you
all.
a question now. Why do you think Biden would be able to legally enforce every state to wear masks if he was president? If he's president, how would he just pass a law stating that? And if it doesn't go through legislative,
It wouldn't be a law. It would be an executive order.
Okay.
And it doesn't make it constitutional at all. It
Yeah.
just means that people would just do it, especially enforcers. And
Okay.
in the medical industry, they're enforcing things now that are completely illegal, and they're just doing
Yeah.
it.
They're doing it, yeah. And people are getting fined and potentially arrested. Now, I don't know if it'll hold up in a court case, but it's going to have to go through the process, which could take a long period of time.
It
But
could.
my point is, he just kind of let each state run its own business, right? That's what he did since the COVID-19, which I thought that was part of the New World Order agenda. People were like, no, he's just giving the states rights. For 4 years, this guy was manhandling this country to get the economy back in line for 4 years. By through executive directives, through the bully bullpen, whatever it took, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
this man-made crisis, this pandemic, occurs, and he's just, well, hands off, let the states happen, let it handle it.
Well,
And,
he's mostly saying let the health authorities handle it,
yeah,
which happened to be in the States.
which is WHO, which is the international organization running convincing the CDC, which convinced the local health departments. So,
Yeah.
so I believe they already had that lined up. They already knew what was going to happen, and that's why they gave the authority back to the states to actually enforce it. Because almost every state has been enforcing this illegal, unconstitutional lockdown, mask mandate, social distancing. As owners of a business, and I do own some businesses, and I know other business owners. Fortunately for me, the business that I'm in, or one of the business I'm in, is not harmed by this, and God help the people who have to determine what's essential and non-essential businesses, because that's illegal and unconstitutional in itself.
That's right.
But nevertheless, this move to divide these businesses to even right now that are barely surviving, let's say restaurants in general, 60% of them are never to open up again,
Right.
that they're barely surviving, and then to go through another lockdown is going to be a death blow to these businesses that are some are family owned and that will never open up again. This is not only unconstitutional, this is immoral. This is so dangerous that we think that a disease with less than a seasonal flu death rate could justify. This is where the big lie has taken us over, and people now truly believe the mantra of what they're saying on the television, on mainstream media, that it's necessary, and it is beyond necessary. It's the destruction of our society is what we're stepping into right now. Another landmine if this continues.
Yeah, it's necessary to cause a global super depression to fight a virus that even CDC has no sample of at all.
Yeah, but the sad part about it right now, Richard, is that they could come up with COVID-21 any given time. In fact, I was talking to Dolores.
That's a plan that they're going to do that.
Well, I talked to Dolores Cahill, and she was telling me that, what they're looking to do now is that to put an Ebola in the COVID, right, in the coronavirus, and the Ebola will cause sepsis. So people will die of sepsis rather than, of course, of COVID-19 or of the flu. And again, the solutions to that are very simple, as she says: vitamin D, B, zinc, all that jazz that we're not allowed to share now, right?
Yeah.
Remdesivir, I think I can't remember the name of the drug that's out there right now.
Remdesivir and Regeneron.
Yeah, and remdesivir.
Both of which Trump gave support to by saying, whether it's true or not, that he got those in the hospital.
Well, and we know they're not effective.
They're also very dangerous.
Well, not only that, but because when they did the test with hydrochloroquine, they give was a 4.0. They give them the deadliest dosage, right? Even the deadliest dosage does a better job than those other two drugs, which is laughable, right? And one costs $20, the other one costs $3,000. It's just like we're playing with people's lives, the money and the scams and the games. It's like lie after lie after lie, and Trump's in the middle of it. Whether he knows it or not, ignorant, or he's with it and going, it doesn't matter to me. On his watch this happened. He's accountable. Forget the Democrats. They are so lost as a group, so lost and so man-controlled by the New World Order that they are too dangerous for it to exist anywhere in any society.
Their whole energy is vicious at this point.
It is. They need to be stopped at all costs. But nevertheless, I do believe even the Republican Party has been compromised
The
and is still.
Republican Party's a criminal organization at this point.
Yes, and again, it's going to fall back on us, Richard. That's why we're doing the whole freedom movement.
I totally agree.
It doesn't.
I'm just saying,
in
case Trump is not intentionally trying to destroy us, there is at least a theoretical small possibility that if information was presented to him by somebody who understood it and cared, that he could act on it. And there's no possibility of that with a malicious candidate. That doesn't mean that he's the answer. It just means that is a significant difference, because if we have 1 day or 6 months, that's a difference to me. We still need to use the time ourselves.
Sure, but I mean, but what if it turned out even worse than if Joe Biden was president? What if the president comes back, takes the election back? There's rioting crazy like you've never seen before in the streets. He not only brings in the National Guard, but brings in the military for the first time, right?
Yeah.
And say the military never leaves. And now we're dealing with
right. And that again depends on A, whether he's got good intentions, and B, whether he will be obeyed.
Richard, at this point, I tell all Americans, assume they have bad intentions, assume Trump's bad intentions, assumes Biden's bad intentions, and then that means that we got to step up. We're going to have to step up and stop relying on a superhero or president, anybody to come in to save the day, and we're going to have to step up. You look at your left, look to your right, look at your neighbors, and you guys decide on your hometown to step into it and start taking your town back and holding your local government officials accountable. That's all that has to happen, and we can stop this tyranny in its tracks.
No, I totally agree with you, with one exception, that these are not mutually exclusive. It's not either we step up or we think Trump might have good intentions. Those can happen simultaneously. And the reason it matters is because if people assume Trump is evil and they let Biden, well, at this point, I don't think he could, but they let Biden get into power, it's going to be much worse, in my opinion. And as far as using the military to stop the paid rioters, which their funders should have been arrested at the very beginning.
Exactly, right.
But if the military is used to stop the rioters from just murdering people in neighborhoods and burning down cities, including black neighborhoods and everything, obviously not for justice, they need to be stopped, just like if Al-Qaeda was burning the country down. But if that's done, and that's the responsibility of the president under insurrection situations, if that's not ended, then that means he's completely malevolent or he's not obeyed.
Or if he brings in the military and they never leave. I mean, either or. I mean, why don't the citizens during insurrection, every sheriff has the ability to anoint your local people to be part of the assistant sheriffs, right? And deputies, they can deputize everybody.
That's right.
Why don't the American people stop it? Why don't you line up?
Well, they could. They're not.
Yeah. Well, because they always think somebody's going to come save you. This is the hence of why we have our government out of control. Back in the day, it's the people in the streets would never allow this to happen.
I totally
run
agree.
Off on a rail.
We just have to be in touch with practical realities right now. Are that if everybody assumes that Trump is bad, and we say, well, the sheriffs have to do it. There's 3,080 or something sheriffs in the U.S. right now, and most of them are clueless about their constitutional powers and duties. So it's unlikely that that happens in time. As far as the militias are concerned, the constitutional militias that Edwin Vieira and other people have been explaining for a long time, those are not organized right now to the degree that they need to be.
No.
And, I think the time is short is the problem. Otherwise, all these really good things could be developed. And I think with whatever small time we've got left, the number of days matters, because if we get people to start waking up, they need to use whatever time they've got in each community.
Well, let's just assume Trump is not working for the American people. He's working for the cabal.
Right.
Just playing a bad cop, good cop. He's the good cop to the bad cop. Their agenda moves forward as they're kind of got us divided and off our game.
Yeah.
What do we do? What do we do at this point?
Well, okay, I have kind of an unconventional approach to that, but you would probably understand it with UI standing for United Intention. I think this is has to be done on many levels at the same time, not mutually exclusive. The underlying requirement that's going to decide the fate of America and the world is consciousness. And it's so lost right now that people think, if they think of it at all, they think of it as an impractical thing that makes you maybe feel better, but doesn't affect physical events. And I'm saying it does affect physical events. If you can, not as a belief system, that's just out of the picture. I'm saying if we can get our original abilities back, we can actually change the consciousness of even the bad actors. And time to get that together is limited, but it doesn't take many people. Right. And it's very powerful.
And I concur with you completely, because even the bad actors, a lot of them are doing because they don't have an alternative. They're either not allowed to, or they know the people in charge are very evil, and they know that there's not a place to go for protection. So yeah, if there is a place for them to go, if there are numbers enough where people can support each other and they can go there and not be condemned, killed, or removed from these evil players, then I think a lot of them would turn against their handlers. And I think a lot of them would be like, hey, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore, man. This is inhumane. And I just think we have to create that avenue. We got to create that opportunity for people to be able to say, okay, I have a choice now. And right now, there's not a lot of choices on a united level, united intention level.
If consciousness starts to change, and I don't mean beliefs at all, and I don't mean ideas. Consciousness is something that's hardly even understood anymore. If that starts to come back, the physical options will become clear. Mm. And if it doesn't, I don't think any physical options are sufficient on their own.
Well, I do agree that it's going to take many different levels, whether you think it's going to be a political solution with a Trump situation, or you believe it's just going to be us uniting our intentions or coming together. But I think all of that, hopefully above and all, but we got to add in that what I think you're referring to was the spiritual aspect. I think this is a great, I don't think politics for the next level of humanity, I don't think politics have any play in it. I think our new politics is going to be replaced with spirituality, individual free will spirituality. And I think when people truly live in that spiritual frequency of who we truly are, politics is not going to be needed. It will kind of just fade away, because you'll do it because it's the right thing to do. You're not doing it because you're forced to do it, when you're living in your spiritual self, or as you develop these type of communities. So I think this is going to be the next level of, I think politics brought us to where we are to the 21st century, and I think it's served its purpose. I think it's now to the point where it's been so corrupt and so mishandled that we can't use it anymore. And our next level is to truly double down spiritually, and I think that we'll see a real kind of Star Trek lifestyle of people doing things because it's part of who they are, and they're aware of who they are.
I think you're right. It's just managing the transition to that.
Yeah.
If you drop everything from the current system and say, well, in the new system, that's not going to be relevant, and you let it run over you because you think in the future it's going to be irrelevant, right. I think that might be a mistake strategically.
Yeah, it needs to be a stepping stone-ish piece we need to add to this. And what that looks like, I'm not sure. But
well, like the lady you said was using the court to get the masks off the trains.
Yeah.
That's a transition example.
Yes.
If she thought that none of this is needed and will just be spiritual, she wouldn't have taken the trouble to do that stuff.
And go to court. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying we need to be on several levels at once. And for right away, though, we need to, and people can only do this inside themselves. It's always easier to go out and tell other people to change.
Yeah.
But really the power of that is if we become examples first. And then we can talk.
You're doing it right now. You're doing it, Richard. I'm doing it with the UI Media Network and our website, now the Freedom Movement. And to me, this is being alive, and I don't mind sacrificing whatever's left in my life to move forward with this, because I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it for your kids. I'm doing it humanity, because this is what I believe my spiritual purpose is, why I'm here. I believe I'm living it at this moment, and why I think I've had so much opportunity, because I have been grateful, and I also put my energy into this level of commitment of spiritual development and the pragmatic aspect of engaging in our three-dimensional world here, and why we're here on that practical level.
Right. And this thing about doing it for everybody else, which I totally agree with, that's the most selfish thing we could possibly do on a level of real wisdom. Because as soon as you give everything you've got for everybody else, that's the fastest way to get to benefit yourself.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Well, you have to do, of course, for yourself as you grow. We're aware of it, but don't you feel part of the community? Don't you feel, when you have that intentional community, that where people are like-minded and you are all kind of uniting, and you see how you can manifest things much quicker together?
Yeah, yeah.
But see, you can't do that alone. You need a center. You need to do that work alone. But once you have it and you know it, then you start interlocking with other souls, and you start moving in and creating that, manifesting that reality much faster. When two or more people come together in like-minded intention or in prayer, there is an energetic exponential reaction. It is science.
And since this is not really solid in the so-called real world that we're talking about, that means whatever you're really doing in yourself, not our outer activities that, we're doing these radio things and everything, but what you're doing in your own experience of yourself is going to attract people that are in harmony with whatever that is. And everybody, people talk about, well, I wish I could manifest things and all that. Everybody's manifesting successfully day and night. It's just that what they're manifesting reflects their internal state, and they might not like it. But, that can be changed. And then the people come. If you're just doing this in yourself, I think they'll find you.
Well, not only that, I think the work that you got to do yourself is you got to start syncing your unconscious beliefs with your conscious beliefs, your intentions, because most people, 95% of all that we create is done unconsciously. So you're wanting the new sports car, and all of a sudden you end up with a Hyundai, is because your unconscious mind is really running the show, and it's saying you don't deserve that, right?
Exactly.
So once we sync those two, we get in our conscious and unconscious belief, and that one intention, whatever it may be, is in sync. That's when I believe you start seeing that manifestation appear in your reality.
Yeah. So even if we start with a few people, and everybody starts with just themselves, but even if we don't have time for the numbers to get really big, it's the quality of focus and intention that really decides what power it has.
Listen, I just put in a float tank in my house, and before that reason alone was to give myself some clarity and some time alone where I can be forced to be still, sensory deprived, and just allow myself to be in that level of theta, and for an hour and a half, whatever it may be, as often as I want, just to allow myself to have that peace and that meditative state of not be distracted with the technology and all around the world. I mean, sleep patterns for people have been just so disruptive on all levels, 5G levels.
That's great. If you can start actually experiencing yourself as not identified with mind stuff or with the body, then you start, regardless of what you think about it, and if you're not thinking, you just start thinking, wow, there's my mind and there's my body. I'm the one who's looking at both of them. What is that? And that starts to be a whole different experience.
Absolutely.
So, one thing I want to make sure and do is talk about your radio shows so that people know about those and where to listen to them and what they're about and what kind of stuff you have on them.
Sure. We're known as the Uncensored Media. Thanks, Richard. Uncensored Media, especially, we just got, I think, taken off of our Facebook platform because of the information we've been sharing. So now it's more like a badge of honor.
That sounds great.
I know, right? I think they might have created other ones for us again. But nevertheless, go to uimedianetwork.org. That's the letter uimedianetwork.org, because this is, you'll see our interviews with, Sasha Stone, Del Bigtree, like we said, the Brits on here a little while ago, Dolores Cahill, and she's from Ireland, and just slews of so many people, and even on this metaphysical world, like the Teal Swans and the Jessica Alstroms. It's a great place for people to go to get kind of uncensored content and exclusive content. We had David Icke on and many others who are ahead of the game. They're ahead of what's going on. They've been telling us what's coming, and it's almost like blow by blow, what they've been telling is coming is happening. And so it gives such more credibility to wake people up who've been doubters of that, to see these people who've been around for decades, their information they've been sharing where most thought they were crazy, then now are like, wow, but they're making sense.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's
catch that out there, but check it out. It's free. Enjoy it now while you can. I know we're creating an exclusive aspect to it, which may be a membership, but we're on Roku as well. You can watch us in your home and your television, as well across the world on different podcasts in addition to.
And you have what I think is maybe a local program too, something about Atlanta, right?
Yes, we have called Awaken Atlanta, but it's really more of an international and national topics that we discuss, kind of like Joe Rogan, but I have my co-host Shannon McVeigh, and we talk about all the latest things. We just had a big show that actually got us kicked off of Facebook. We had a show on QAnon. And we have all different types of topics that most don't address or discuss. And it's not just political. I mean, we get into, anything from even on the alien level. Like we had Billy Carson on and Mike Barra on, and we have others who come in and talk about the secret space program and some, tantalizing things that people are just not used to hearing about. So it's a great place to go. And the shows that I host is Frequency Wars, The Next Revolution, and then, of course, Awaken Atlanta. But we have many other shows on the network as well.
Okay. And you just got back from Red Pill Expo.
Oh, God, yes. What a great place.
You got to see a lot of great people there.
And also, all the heroes.
You gave a presentation on one thing that you think would really be important for people in every community across the country and maybe beyond.
I believe it's the only real solution, and it's going to come down to it at some point. We're going to have to, whether at gunpoint or do it while we have a choice, is that we're going to have to unite. I mean, the whole point of United Intentions Foundation is uniting our intentions, but physically we're going to have to unite with our neighbors. And this is a very simple plan. You meet weekly for an hour. You go to church for an hour once a week, right? You meet weekly for an hour in your hometown and in a public place, and you have your silent protest. And there you just talk about freedom. Doesn't matter. You don't divide on any level. If people want to wear masks, if people want to, or Republicans or Democrats, if people are black or white, or people are gay or straight, doesn't matter. You divide on nothing other than if they're showing up for freedom and individual rights. And for an hour, you just talk about freedom and individual rights. Talk about the Constitution, the First Amendment, all the different amendments. You get into what is important to us. And as you build numbers in that town square, the government and the locals see that, and they see, wow, what's going on here? That's the first part. That's the proactive part, to get re-engaged, to hold your government officials accountable so they could see the numbers increasing of people who are freedom-loving oriented folks. And so the second part is the reactive part. This is the non-compliance part. You make a commitment when you show up each week, or you bring a new person each week in your local town. You make a commitment to each other. If ever there's a government agent or agents ever approaches or attempts to arrest, remove, or to harass you or your family anywhere you may be, you as your neighbor will get between that authority and that family member is about to get removed from your home or arrested if it's unconstitutional. And this is, I think, critical now. This is the part where they have to see that we're willing to be non-compliant. We're not going to allow government agents, which are talking about it now, and it's already happening in Australia and in England and many other places in Canada.
They're demonstrating, yeah.
They're removing children from their homes who are testing positive on COVID-19 and sending them now to FEMA camps that they set up in Canada, that they set up in Australia. This is a reality that's already coming here. We've already established FEMA camps years ago. And so for this moment in time, I believe has been planned out. And so we're going to have to get between the authority. And if 5,000 people show up to your home, Richard, and there's somebody's trying to take your spouse away because she's positive, right? 5,000 people get up, 3 police officers in a local county department shows up, they're going to have to come up with another plan, and then 10 more thousand people show up. So you make these commitments now to each other on a local level for that non-compliance if ever needed in the future. And I hate to say, it's probably going to be needed sooner than later.
Yeah, what I've heard of the plans in the near future for the next wave, I don't know if it's officially the second or the third wave. I haven't really kept up on that. But whichever wave it is, part of it's going to be just the manipulation of numbers and the instructions to everybody from CDC or some authority to run more cycles of the PCR test so that the results are worse. Yes. And it could show that it's terrifying increase of, that's what they call a case, most people don't understand, even most saying the numbers are overblown and all that, they're not getting it. There are no numbers because as long as you use the PCR test, it's not a test for anything. It's the ability to see a trace of anything in anybody.
It's worse than that. The testing, stop. Don't ever get tested again, people. Stop getting tested at all. It is a bait and switch. That's what they did to us back in April, all right? They said it's about the death count. Remember? Everyone's so scared about the death count.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that they always knew the death count was going to be low with this COVID-19. Then they did the bait and switch. Now, it wasn't about the death count anymore. All of a sudden became about testing positive. Testing positive is irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
But you have to say why it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant because number one, it's inaccurate. Even if it was accurate, it's irrelevant because all it's doing is justifying these folks to give them an opportunity to lock us down. You got to allow the herd immunity like in Sweden. You got to let it rush through. All you got to do is boost up our seniors with their vitamin Ds and vitamin Bs and the zincs and the vitamin Cs. You juice them up. You keep them separate as much as you need to. And then everybody gets to herd immunity, do the same thing, build your immunity, and we move on to the next bioweapon or bioengineered virus they want to create for next year. So, but that's why testing is irrelevant. Do not get tested. All it's doing is inaccurate, number one, 89% inaccurate. And then two, it is giving them fodder to be able to create the lockdown and destroy our companies along with the New World Order agenda they have had in place for decades. So we're just walking right into the trap.
Right.
And you have to wake up and be smart about it.
And there's a couple of aspects to that. One is that the test itself doesn't test for anything. And most people would say, what? It's a test. How could it not test for things? Because the inventor, who interestingly enough died from something, I don't know what, before this all started.
Yeah.
And otherwise he'd have some objections to how it was being used because the inventor said it could never diagnose anything. Real simple. And so it's a fake test and it's used as a weapon to say you're positive. It doesn't matter if you're sick or not. And therefore you have to be isolated. But in America, according to the definition of our unalienable rights, even if the pandemic were real, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because if you could declare an emergency and say, well, we're only taking your rights for a little while. We'll give them right back when everything's safe and we decide it's safe. You can't do that in a free country. And for the countries that the government doesn't want to be free, even more so than the US, the Declaration of Independence and the founding documents of America were important because they said these rights belong to everybody everywhere, not just Americans. And they're unalienable, inviolable, and no emergency, even if it's a 90% true death rate, can ever suspend the rights. No. So if that were, and just by coincidence, this hasn't been taught in American schools for decades, so nobody knows about this anymore.
I know.
But if that were followed, the government can make a suggestion and say, well, everybody's dying from this disease, and assume they really were. They can suggest whatever they want to suggest if they're honest about what would help. But they can't take away your rights. Yeah. You're allowed to die free.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's beautifully stated. And that's one thing that we do on these weekly meetings in our local town is we discuss the Constitution. We bring up points of what you just said. We share that because most people have no idea. And you bring your kids, you play music, you have fun for that hour. It's on 1 hour a week you commit to. And if you knew, Richard, that would you commit to 1 hour a week showing up in your local town, so you're not driving far, would if you knew that you showing up that 1 hour a week would stop not only this tyranny, but actually protect your future of your kids and their and not hinder their inalienable rights, would you
Yeah.
do it? I think everybody
I would do it.
Yeah.
The thing that really has to be looked at now, since it's a little ahead of time, is that what they're planning on doing is making the medical situation seem much worse.
Mhm.
And they're going to say, because of that, you're a super spreader at your event, and we just have to arrest or shoot all of you
Yeah.
for your own protection.
And that's what they're going to do anyway in your home individually. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think at this point we're going to have to
So you
find
might as well make it a group event, is what you're saying.
exactly where it's a public event. But you see,
Right.
when you do it in your local hometown, you know the people who are in your council people. Everybody knows each other for the most part if you're engaged to whatever degree. So it's less likely for that to happen. But if you have the numbers, they're not going to enforce it. They can't. They can't enforce something if everyone's like, hey, I will show up to their house if you try to take their child away. All right. I will show up at their house if you're trying to arrest them because they're not wearing a mask. Okay.
Yeah. And if you want to look at one of Trump's huge failures, and there are many, is that the illegal bioweapons development labs, of which there are at least 12 that are well known, operating every day still in the US, that were officially declared illegal in 1990. Nobody has done anything to shut those down, and they probably have a huge array of real viruses that would really kill people.
Exactly.
And it would be better if those weren't deployed.
Yes. Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. And then Wuhan working with North Carolina, and it's all so corrupt. Honestly, I can't even go there. It's so corrupt. That's why I don't give Trump a pass at all, because the corruption is so large and so big that he'd have to be blind not to see how.
Well, he's definitely let this all happen. There's no question about it.
On his watch, and I listen. Leadership roles I've had all my life, and I told everybody who worked for me in the past that, listen, something goes bad as a manager, something goes bad during when you're in charge, it's on your watch.
Yeah, you're kind of responsible for that.
You were aware of it or not, or you didn't do anything about it or not, or you didn't start, it doesn't matter. On your watch, it's happened, and you got to be held accountable.
And what's missing in the leaders now, even if their intentions are good, is consciousness. So rather than searching everywhere for one, be good for each person who cares about it to become one.
Absolutely.
Change your own consciousness. That's the fastest way.
Perfectly stated. Change your own consciousness. Consciousness is perception, right? Change your perception and you change your reality.
Yeah, exactly. We should do a longer show sometime when we have time for it.
Yes, I wish we had more time. I could do this forever with you, Rachel. This is just great information, and I know everyone's scared right now out there to many to whatever degree, but it's not about just being scared, because we got to face our courage, right? We got to go into courage at this point, and if we're so scared that we can't allow ourselves to get off the couch and engage into our community, then we're going to be part of the problem and not part of the solution.
Right.
So as we get up and we engage in society and we share what we believe and not hold our tongue because all the other birds are flying in the opposite direction, or everyone's doing whatever you think they're doing and they're listening to the wrong people and you're just a minority and you don't want to say anything. Those days are over with. We got to step up into our greatness and we got to get engaged. We have to. Time is short, guys. We got to get engaged now more than ever before. Don't wait on somebody to come save us. We'll do it together.
Everybody, no matter who they are, is an absolute minority of one person, and they still have to do something. And when you get down to fear being the obstacle, when we start even getting a little bit of consciousness back, what becomes obvious is fear is optional. It doesn't have to be suppressed, because that doesn't work in the long run. It can be dropped because it's a mind program, and it's a particular kind of intention. And if mind becomes cooperative, it doesn't have to project fear anymore. And then no matter what happens, you don't have to deal with that, and it's not useful for anything.
Amen to that, brother.
So anyway, I'm glad you're doing all the stuff that you're doing. It's really encouraging.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and people want to get involved. You want to be facilitated in your own hometown, go to uimedianetwork.org, click on Freedom, the tab for Freedom Movement, and give us your information, and we'll put it up there, and people could have access to it and get supporting you. And it's easy to start up. It's really simple to do. It's
so you have directions on that tab of what to do in your own town, right?
Absolutely. And we'll support you in every which way we can. So
yeah, I would suggest everybody look at that instantly.
Yeah, definitely.
Say where it is again.
Go to uimedianetwork.org, the letter U, letter I, medianetwork.org, and you'll see Freedom Movement tab there. Just scroll on down. You can click on it and walk you through it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll do that too.
Wonderful.
So thank you, Tim. Have a good night. And
hey, Richard, thank you. Great too. Great what you're doing. You're just you're light out there. You're a lighthouse out there for freedom and for consciousness and for spiritual understanding who we are. And best of luck with everything you're doing, and keep up the great work.
We should stay in touch. Too many of the people working for, trying to do something good aren't even aware of each other.
No, you're right.
The dark side of this is totally organized.
Yeah, the organized.
And I think they're trying to show us, look, you should be doing more of this.
Yeah, the organized lie beats the unorganized truth.
Well, we're still going to be individualists, but
wow.
I think communication would be good. It's a good time to strengthen and expand networks as long as we have that ability.
Richard, the unorganized truth, when that becomes the organized truth, and there's billions of the unorganized truth. And there's only a small percentage of the organized lie. But when that unorganized truth becomes the organized truth, game over. Game over.
And everybody will want to be a part of that now.
Exactly.
At that time.
You never even have to focus on the organized lie because it's unnecessary. You just focus on what you want to create.
Well, besides, there's a resonance effect of consciousness, and I think we can affect the people who are fooled by being part of the dark side right now. They don't have to stay there.
You got it right there. Right there is everything. Listen to Richard.
Okay, Tim. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay, you guys, that was Tim Ray, uimedianetwork.org. I think he's got a great idea for the network that he's working on, instructions for people to do something in their local communities that's very low stress. You just get together and 1 hour a week and meet in a certain way and become conscious allies of each other. And this was a discouraging factor for authorities that want to do unpleasant things for us, and I think, or to us. I think it's something that deserves support and participation right away. So sorry we're so late today. It was just an issue with Skype, and it's a live show, so figured it's better to still go on the air even if we're late. I hope you didn't mind too much. Stay in touch with us. We've got the Planetary Healing Club meeting in about 10 minutes because we're behind schedule right now. So that'll be in 10 minutes. Anybody that doesn't know about that is invited and welcome to be there. It does have small dues. It's the way that we generate a little bit of money to stay on the air other than donations. And if you have the means to do that, we don't do commercials, so we kind of rely on you that way if you want to support what we're doing. At lostartsradio.com, there's a donate button, also Lost Arts Research Institute.org and subscribestar.com/lostartsradio. We're also on many other platforms, Brighteon and places like that don't censor, which is a good one to stay in touch with, and especially our main site, lostartsradio.com. Anyway, if you're interested in planetaryhealingclub.com, that's interactive live every week. I'm there with everybody who wants to participate, and you can access that at planetaryhealingclub.com. And if you have questions about it, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you there in about 10 minutes, and hope you have a good rest of the weekend. I'll talk to you soon.